before the show, I guess it was really about 11:30, right before you went to lunch then, Donald Trump was walking to Marine One, the helicopter. And so there's a lot of background noise on this, but there was a really good exchange he had with some reporters here. Well, half of it was good. And one thing I've noticed before we even jump into the questions here is Donald Trump got a lot of flack about this time last year for rearranging the deck chairs in the White House press pool. He was kicking some people out. He was adding some new voices in, some new platforms, some new outlets. Heck, even our buddies at the Dallas Express got a White House press pass. And so the questions have actually been better. Now, there is about half of them are still just dedicated, Trump-hating, deranged hacks. But half of them were good questions. I'll play a little bit of both here because this is important stuff. The number one thing he was asked about, Iran. If you can't understand the guy asking the question, he's asking, what more do you need to do militarily before you're done, before mission is accomplished in Iran?
What more do you need to do militarily for this operation to end?
More of the same, and we'll see how that all comes out. Right now, they've lost their Navy, they've lost their Air Force, they have no anti-aircraft apparatus at all, they have no radar, their leaders are gone, and we could do a lot worse to one another. We're leaving certain things that if we take them out, or we could take them out by this afternoon, in fact, within an hour, they literally would never be able to build that country back.
So did you catch all that? Now, if you want to take the cynical approach, the guy is asking Donald Trump to set some goalposts in order to have something to use against him later. What happens if you do accomplish all these goals and you don't declare an end to the Iraq conflict? Or what happens when you declare into the Iran conflict? I said it wrong, didn't I? I keep doing that. The Iran conflict. What happens if you don't accomplish all these goals, but you declare an end to the Iran conflict anyway, without accomplishing all those goals? Then they could use against it. Well, are you lying about that? Or were you wrong? Or were you defeated? Or how can you call this a victory when you didn't even achieve their own objectives? So the cynical part of me says that was, I mean, it was a decent question. I don't know if it was asked honestly or in bad faith. You know, like maybe the guy really was wondering what more militarily do you need to do. But I think a lot of people were trying to set up some goalposts so they can beat him with it later if it doesn't go this way or that way. But the next question, this was absolutely in bad faith. They're going back to the strike on the girls' school in Iran. If you're not familiar with this line, he's getting asked this every time he just opens it up to reporters. And that is the story of a Tomahawk missile. The narrative by some people is Donald Trump shot a Tomahawk missile into an Iranian girls' school, killed 100 and something Iranian schoolgirls. The pushback on that is there was a military installation next door, and the military installation was hit next door, and the shock waves made the ceiling of a inadequate building crumble, and the girls were collateral damage, and he didn't strike the school. And so both of them sound a little too good. I think the truth's maybe somewhere in the middle, because there's no military reason. There's no advantage. There's nothing good to come of it. Donald Trump's over here, let's shoot the girls' school. That'd be hilarious. Who really thinks he's that evil? Anybody? Okay, don't get me started. But maybe maybe the military thought that they were hitting the installation and it was the actual school. Maybe they did hit the installation, but the explosion was right there and knocked out the school. Maybe the missile was off by like one fraction of a degree, and so it missed its target by about 30 yards, but that's enough to hit the school. You know, I'm sure the truth is somewhere down in the middle. But the point of asking this question isn't to get to the bottom of the story. The point to this is to find the thing that makes Donald Trump look the worst and make that the story. And so when we're talking about how many thousands of missiles have been fired, they've said they've bombed 600 or 6,000 different places. And if only one missile strike was off, I think that's a raging record of success. But here's the question.
As Commander-in-Chief, do you...
For what?
For the strike on the school in Iran. A new report says the military investigation has found it was the United States that struck the school.
I don't know about it.
Yeah, I don't know about it, and he moves on. The United Nations found that the United States did strike the school. Do you take accountability for that? Look, war is hell. There's going to be accidents. There's going to be civilian casualties. This is why a lot of us are non-interventionists to begin with. But if that's the thing you're leading, if that's you get one question to ask the president about a war and you're just picking out the thing that could possibly make him look the worst, all right, well, we know what that's about. And then there's a place for that in the White House press pool. You don't want a whole bunch of lapdogs following around asking softballs. We saw what that looked like for the last 4 years because that's what Joe Biden had, minus Peter Doocy. Here was another good this is a pretty good question here. It's framed in a way to sort of pit Donald Trump against Thune, Senator Thune, the majority leader in the Senate, because he's sitting on his hands when it comes to the SAVE Act. But this was a pretty good little back and forth here about the Thune and the SAVE Act.
Is Senator Thune listening to you when you say you want to pass the Save America Act? He says there aren't the votes to do it right now. What's your response?
Well, he's got to be a leader. If he's a leader, he's got to get him. It's the most popular bill I've ever seen put before Congress. And it's voter ID and it's voter. You have to be able to be a citizen to vote. It's called citizenship. And we're also adding in no men playing in women's sports, no transgender mutilization of our children, and no mail-in ballots, fake mail-in ballots. We have none of that, except in the case of the military, etc.
There you go. So that's what we're gonna springboard off of that. And coming up next, let's talk about this whole voter fraud issue. Because you keep being told there's no voter fraud. It's extremely rare. They're going after a problem that doesn't exist. Well, then why are they doing this? Because they don't want women and minorities and poor people to vote. Because they're racist, sexist, bigot, homophobe, literally Hitler. This is what Hitler did. This is exactly what Hitler did. If that's your explanation, you should be really skeptical. Really, you think Donald Trump or half of America is running around going, what did Hitler do? We should mimic that, durr. No, but you're constantly being told voter fraud is rare. It's so rare. Well, coming up in the next segment, I'm going to show you what happens if you go to YouTube and you type in voter fraud charges. And we'll see how rare it is. We'll see how far back in the record you have to go before you can find a sizable amount of voter fraud. And then we'll contrast that with how CNN and other media outlets portray voter fraud as almost a unicorn. It's like Bigfoot, it's so rare. That's coming up next on The James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. How rare is voter fraud really? I'm James Parker, News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. This is a great conversation to be had right now because the SAVE Act is on the table in the Senate. It's already passed the House. John Thune hasn't brought it up for a vote, and a lot of people are wondering why. In fact, you just heard Donald Trump was asked about that about 11:30-ish Texas time today. And you're being told, we don't need to pass this. The only reason anyone would want voter ID is because they're racist, right, Sonny?
Don't have cars, don't have driver's licenses. So it's sort of a vestige of, I think, post-slavery laws where black people had to prove.
Yeah, we don't have to sit through all that. And then you're also told by CNN, voter fraud is so rare, just so rare.
Everybody has an anecdote of some kind, maybe an urban myth, but some anecdote of seeing a bus full of people crossing a state border. But here's what they truly found, and let's put it up again for people. 146 million total registered voters. Out of those, there were 2,068 alleged voter fraud cases, okay? So it does happen. It's not Bigfoot.
The allegations happen.
Okay, the allegations happen. Then there were 10 cases of voter impersonation reported. That's what, voter ID is supposed to...
Dead people voting.
Cut back. Sure. So 10 cases, okay, out of the 146 million people. There's more. They drilled down on Arizona, Ohio, Georgia, Texas, Kansas. That's where attorney generals actually prosecuted cases, okay? So beyond allegations, they prosecuted 38 cases of voter fraud. So 38.
You think I can play you more than 38 cases of voter fraud before the show's over? This is so ridiculous. Here, let me give you another example, just so it's not a one-off. This is who is this? Oh, yeah, KCRA, just some local TV affiliate.
Sending millions of ballots all over the country. There's fraud. They found them in creeks.
That was President Trump speaking during last night's debate. But California Secretary of State Alex Padilla says his claims of voter fraud are untrue.
Voter fraud in California and throughout the country are exceedingly rare.
Padilla says there are a number of protocols to make sure there is no tampering with the process, especially with mail-in ballots.
All right, if you're skeptical, don't trust me. Go to YouTube. This is going to be a great experiment for you. This will be quite eye-opening if you're skeptical of the James Show. Go to YouTube, type in voter fraud charges, voter fraud conviction, voter fraud sentencing, voter fraud case, voter fraud arrest. Just go look it up. I started with voter fraud charges. I was swarmed with stories of voter fraud. You know how far back you have to go? Like, well, James, you can cherry pick. There's going to be some guy, maybe, once every year, every other year, something that gets busted doing this stuff, but it's still super rare. Really? You know how far you have to go back to get your first report on voter fraud? You have to go back to this morning, KOAT.
And new on 7, a woman is accused of illegally voting in the Ruidoso election. Court documents show Sinun Om changed her voter registration address from Ruidoso Downs to Ruidoso so she could vote last week. She's charged with falsifying voter record information.
Someone falsified their voter records. That was just New Mexico. That was from a few hours ago. That was on KOAT's morning show today. There's another big story that's actually this had a little bit of pickup across, I don't want to say national media, but I saw this floating on my viral video feed in the last 24 hours. This comes from CBS 21.
Well, Joel G. Candace, according to federal prosecutors, 50-year-old Mahadi Saka was deported from the United States in 2000, but stayed in the country and found a way to register to vote and vote in the 2024 election. So the DOJ, says he had been living in Philadelphia illegally and that he had falsely claimed to be an American citizen in order to vote.
Oh my goodness. So the thing that never happens keeps happening. He's an illegal immigrant. He found a way to vote. He found a way to vote illegally in our elections. When I go through these, notice how many of these are immigrants. Notice how many of them are illegal immigrants. Notice how many of them are exploiting the vulnerabilities in absentee ballots and mail-in ballots. You want to go back some more? Here's a story from just a couple weeks. Let's see. This is from February of 2026. WALA, they had voter fraud out there.
First tonight, voter fraud allegations rocking a small town in South Alabama. 3 people arrested accused of filling out bogus absentee ballots.
All right, so now we're already all over the place here. We have Albuquerque, we have Philly, we have South Alabama. Here's one from just a few weeks back.
The Kansas Attorney General filing election charges against the mayor of a Kansas community that is in the town of Coldwater in Comanche County. The city's mayor is accused of voting illegally.
He's now charged, though, with 3 counts of voting without being qualified.
How?
And 3 counts of election perjury by the Kansas Attorney General. Attorney General Chris Kobach says that Ceballos is not a U.S. citizen. If convicted, he could face more than 5 years in prison. Ceballos accused of voting in the 2022 general election, the 2023 election, and the 2024 primary.
Do you catch what all happened there? You have an illegal immigrant who got fake papers, climbed all the way up the political ladder, is the mayor of a small town in Kansas, and then voted repeatedly. And did you hear him just rip off the election? This isn't a one-off. This happens over and over and over.
Accused of voting in the 2022 general election, the 2023 election, and the 2024 primary.
Well, certainly that's all right. Well, no, look, let's just dig around. This one comes from last year, WTNH in Connecticut.
Headlines. 5 people are now under arrest accused of tampering with the mayoral primary election in Connecticut's largest city in 2023.
There are numerous charges that all surround fraudulent use of absentee ballots.
Absentee ballots? You got to be kidding me. All right, well, James, now you're just cherry picking. No, look. This isn't just politicians trying to get reelected. There's a lot of political activists getting busted for this, including BLM.
6 years and 1 day. That is the sentence handed down to a Black Lives Matter activist in an illegal voting case.
Yeah, there you go. That was WREG. So, okay, well, let's just talk about Texas then. I mean, you found like one here, one there. All right, let's just focus on one state. Let's focus on our state. Here's a report from KXAN. Now, granted, this was a couple years back, but listen to how just regular voting fraud is in Texas.
Well, Robert, first off, voter fraud does happen in Texas, and it's something that's gone on for decades. State Attorney General's office records show Texans have been prosecuted for committing voter fraud in every election in the past 15 years.
In every election in the past 15 years. Come on now. Is it rare, or is somebody lying to you? How rare is it? You know it's rare? Seeing a bicycle in the bike lane next to my office. You know it's rare? Seeing a full train pulling up at the DART station. You know it's rare? Seeing white rural rage. You know it's rare? Seeing a Christian-based terror attack. I have some more examples. Here's WKMG. It happened in Florida.
This just in now, charges against a local mayor in a voter fraud investigation. News 6 has learned Eatonville Mayor Anthony Grant is in some serious legal trouble. News 6's Nadine Yanis joins us now live from outside the Orange County Courthouse. Nadine, what can you tell us?
Thanks, Nadine. Here's another one, ABC 33, Alabama.
And now to some breaking news. Blount County officials arresting and charging a foreign national accused of illegally voting in several state and federal elections.
A foreign national illegally voting? I thought this never happened. Well, look, you were told only 38 happened. I'm about halfway there to 38. Can I get the other 19 before I got to go to break?
A 19th person charged with election crimes in Edinburgh. Among the 19 people arrested in voter fraud-related crimes is Edinburgh Mayor Richard Molina and his wife.
Y'all remember that story? There's 19 right there. The people telling you voter fraud are rare are lying to you. The people telling to you that you only support this or people only support this because they're racist are lying to you. Voter fraud is a problem. It happens every single election. And the people who don't want this passed deserve all the skepticism in the world, including the Republicans in the Senate right now. What the hell is wrong with these people? 95% of Republicans want it. 83% of everybody in America wants it. 70-something, I forgot what the number was, percent of Democrats want it. You know how many Democrat House members voted for the SAVE Act? 0.5%. Is that representing the people when more than 70% of just your Democrat constituency wants this act? And all but one of you, Henry Cuellar from Texas, voted against it in the House? What is really going on here? Oh, I got more on this. Voter fraud is not rare. People are stealing elections, and you are a dupe if you do not demand that the SAVE Act be passed immediately. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. All right, everybody wants the SAVE Act to pass except for people in D.C. and hacks. Will it pass? I'm James Parker, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. So what we have here is a weird impasse where 95% of Republican voters want the SAVE Act to pass. Why isn't John Thune bringing it up in the Senate? And that's kind of a rhetorical question, the fact that I really don't have the answer to that. But again, let's revisit this idea that voter fraud is just so rare, just so...
Everybody has an anecdote of some kind, maybe an urban myth, but some anecdote of seeing a bus full of people crossing a state border. But here's what they truly found, and let's put it up again for people. 146 million total registered voters. Out of those, there were 2,068 alleged voter fraud cases, okay? So it does happen. It's not Bigfoot.
The allegations happen.
Okay, the allegations happen. Then there were 10 cases of voter impersonation reported. That's what, voter ID is supposed to...
Dead people voting.
Cut back. Sure. So 10 cases, okay, out of the 146 million people. There's more. They drilled down on Arizona, Ohio, Georgia, Texas, Kansas. That's where attorney generals actually prosecuted cases, okay? So beyond allegations, they prosecuted 38 cases of voter fraud. So 38.
Yeah, I showed you more than 38 in the last segment. It really is that bad. All right, to the phones we go. This is, who are we starting with? Martin in Euless. You're on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey, Martin.
Hey, so she just stated that there's 146 million registered voters.
Right.
Riddle me this. Trump got 74 million in 2020. If you add those two together, that's 155 million, meaning that there was 9 million fraudulent votes.
Yeah, I don't know what year she's pulling that data from. We don't have to nitpick that part. The part we have to nitpick is, well, it's only happened 38 times, or I have other reports, so it just only happened 10 times. Bro, there's 19 people arrested in one voter fraud case in Texas alone that I can show you. I played, here, let me play this for the people who missed it last segment. This is KXAN a couple years ago.
Well, Robert, first off, voter fraud does happen in Texas, and it's something that's gone on for decades. State Attorney General's office records show Texans have been prosecuted for committing voter fraud in every election in the past 15 years.
So they're sticking with the fact that you only want voter fraud because you're racist, not because you want secure elections. What's your response to that, Martin?
Whatever.
I know, right? It doesn't even work on me anymore.
I mean, I've been called racist in so many different ways. Even if I tried to be racist that many ways, I couldn't possibly have the time to do it. It's ridiculous. And it's beyond pathetic. If you honestly believe that Joe Biden got 81 million votes, which is like 13 or 15 million more than Barack Obama, please. I mean, it's insane. The numbers don't match up. They've never matched up. And, when they talk about these cases, a case can include thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, fraudulent votes. Just because there's 38 cases, it's not like there's just one person committing fraud in all 38 cases.
Right. No, that's totally good point. I think most of us know that intuitively, and some people are pretending to not know it. And the other thing you're bringing up, Martin, what was it racist? Was it Jim Crow 2.0 when Chuck Schumer said this in the 90s? And at the end, I have him talking about the SAVE Act here.
Let's admit the truth. Everywhere people go, they're asked for a Social Security card. In fact, one way to prove you're a bona fide person who can have a job is to ask for a driver's license and a Social Security card.
Racist!
This is an anti-fraud amendment. Over where we go, people say, well, why can't you stop illegal immigrants or others from coming here? And the number one answer we give our constituents is when they come here, they can get jobs, get benefits against the law because of fraud.
Meanwhile, this is Jim Crow 2.0. Jim in Rowlett, you're on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP.
Yeah, I want to back up what the gentleman earlier just said. Biden got 81 million votes in 2020, and they allowed just incredible cheating to go on. Many state legislatures changed the voting rules, whereas the only person that can change the rules is the Attorney General.
Oh, no. You said that backwards. The Secretary of State or Attorney General changed the rules in some states, and the Constitution says only state legislatures can change it. But your point still stands. You just said it backwards on the radio.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
But anyway, he got 81 million votes, and Kamala Harris got 76 million votes in this past election. Now, where did those 5 million votes go?
Oh, the world may never know. It's you have to. It's like finding the end of the rainbow. It keeps moving. And come on, why would you question the election results, Jim? We have the most secure elections ever.
Yeah, and I'm 6'3".
Right. Well, look, I also have from 2016 and 2017, a bunch of Democrats denying that election. So it used to not be Jim Crow.
President-elect as a legitimate president.
You do not consider him a legitimate president. Why is that?
I think the Russians participated in helping this man get elected.
Do you believe Trump is a legitimate president?
What I believe is that there's no question that the outcome of this election was affected by the Russian interference with the campaign, and because our intelligence community has...
All right, that's a 4-minute montage. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but for 2017, 2018, 2019, the number one leading headline story, the most amount of airtime and ink was spent on the story of how the 2016 election was flawed. And then all of a sudden, starting in 2021, anybody who denies an election is an election denier and a threat to democracy and a conspiracy theorist and literally Jim Crow 2.0. What's really going on here? You know, it almost betrays, they're almost giving over their hand. Hey, you lost an election. Oh, it must be cheating. Well, why would you assume cheating? Well, that's how you win elections. Oh, is it? That's not how we win elections. All right, coming up next, a guy who's done great work exposing H-1B scams in Texas, Kellen Jones from the Dallas Express. I'm James Parker on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. We're exposing H-1B visa abuse in Texas. I'm James Parker on The James Show, News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP, your home for Markley, Van Camp, and Robbins. Three funny guys giving you stories you don't hear anywhere else. My next guest coming back on The James Show, Kellen Jones from the Dallas Express. And first off, I love your story, but explain it to the people listening what you've uncovered like they've never heard this before. Okay, so there's quite a few stories that you have of H-1B abuse in Texas. Is this the standard template that everyone's following, or is this coming from all different angles? A graphic designer. Yeah, I remember having you on for that one, and I was just banging my head. But so that counts. That's technically legal, but that's clearly H-1B visa abuse. That violates the spirit of the law. That's not why the law was passed in the first place. And I think most of the American people wouldn't support it if they were given a vote on such things. So technically true, but I call that H-1B visa abuse. Now, the question is anything going to be done about it? We've exposed these people. 2 guys are going to jail, but all these people they brought here on H-1B visas, are they revoked immediately and they're sent home? Great. So what happens to the visa abuse situation? We can't even charge anyone with a crime or get anyone in trouble. How do we fix that one, Kellen? All right, we're talking with Kellen Jones from the Dallas Express. Can you stick with me one more segment? I've got a little more to fill out on this H-1B visa abuse situation. Great. We'll continue with Kellen next on The James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. We're busting H-1B visa abuse in Texas. It's the James Show. News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. I know, good to see you too. I'm your host, James Parker. We're continuing with Kellen Jones, a senior reporter from the Dallas Express, who is covering the latest on a story of a couple guys here who are our neighbors. Now, they're immigrants, but they've been here for a while. One of them even got citizenship status. And as their case unfolds, it seems like we're getting the standard template that they followed here, that they followed in Washington and in Minneapolis and in Ohio and Cleveland and all around the country here. Kellen, so it seems like the easiest way to fool the government is to make a business on paper. You can give it any old address you want. You don't have to pick up the mail. You don't have to have the lights on. You don't have to have any signage. And you can just tell them, yeah, I have employees. Is there no follow-up on this? Is there no verification process? This seems really easy to scam the government, whether it's H-1B visas or home hospice care or the Leering Center. I mean, is there no checks on this stuff? All right. So another thing I learned about you, Kellen, is you're going on a tour of Texas right now talking about this. Why didn't you let me know? You were just in town, this weekend, speaking at an event. You were in Euless. You were in Tarrant County, I guess, a few days ago. Do you have another event coming up? What's going on at these things? So this is a sort of an information tour, but you also have a part at the end where people ask questions. What's the number one question you're getting? Oh, wow. What? Well, what's the answer? It might be. Makes sense. All right. The other thing that just blows me away about your coverage of this is you find some of these companies, like Cognizant, has more than 50,000 approvals Really? There's another company, 45,000 approvals. Man, it's hard to imagine. You have a company that big. You need 50,000 foreign workers to get the job done. That is just not believable. That's it? That's over five. That's like 10,000 a year. That's like importing a medium-sized town of foreigners and just dropping them off in Texas. Oh, gross. I hate it already. Hate it already. Oh, of course. Of course. All right. Well, Kellen Jones, get the heck off my show. You're breaking my heart. Give me a reminder before you do that next speaking event. Where did you say it was? Yeah. I'm not going to remember that. Just float me a text or something a week or two out. We'll have you back on. And I want to go to one of those. Thank you. This is Kellen Jones from the Dallas Express. Coming up next, we're going to talk to Kenny Stein from the Policy for Institute of Energy Research and find out what the heck's going on with your gas prices. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. What's going to happen with your price of gas? I'm James Parker, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Your home for Mark Lee Van Camp and Robbins. To give me an assist, Kenny Steins. He's from the Policy for Institute of Energy Research. And it looks like we may have already seen the top of the mountain as far as oil prices go. Do we expect them to come down pretty soon, or are we expecting more turbulence in the oil markets? How much worse would this have been if we hadn't ramped up production in the last 5-10 years? So what is the lag time between the gas prices coming back down? Because they seem to have peaked thus far on March 9th, and they've come down, I don't know, a good 10-something% since then. How long will that take to trickle down to the gas pump for us? Well, we have Venezuela just, had their table turned over recently. Are they back online? Because I recall their production had dwindled in the wake of mismanagement under Chavez and Maduro. What's the story coming out of Venezuela for the oil market these days? We're talking with Kenny Stein, the Institute of Energy Research. I saw also in the oil headlines that ExxonMobil is moving their headquarters finally, officially, legally to Texas. They've already had like their base of operations down here, but they're making it official. Why did they do that? Why would New Jersey let a great company like that out of their state? Right. Good stuff. Any other oil companies left that haven't moved to Texas? Oh, name names. Do I know them? Well, yeah, and I remember when I was in college taking business classes, they told you everyone incorporates in Delaware. Uh, that it's not the way anymore, I suppose. Well, New Jersey and Delaware's loss is our gain. Welcome, ExxonMobil. It's good to officially have you here. Kenny Stein, Institute of Energy Research. I appreciate you talking about gas prices with us. Thank you, sir. All right. Coming up next on The James Show, a big hospice fraud was uncovered in California. And let me just go ahead and prepare you for what you're about to hear. This is something that's happening everywhere. This is happening here. This is happening in all 50 states. Your jaw is going to drop when you hear this next on The James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Your tax dollars can't be stolen fast enough by these people. I'm James Parker, News Talk 820 93.3 FM, WBAP. You saw the Nick Shirley expose, and that has sort of become, strangely enough, I don't want to say the gold standard, the prototype, the archetype. Archetype's probably the best word. It's become the default template. How about that? Let me use my computer words. For other independent journalists to go out and do the same thing. Nick Shirley was the guy who went through Minneapolis to the Somali daycares and showed you what frauds they were, how your billions of your tax dollars were being flushed down the toilet on just quite obvious abuse. And some of it was through daycares, some of it's through home hospice centers, home healthcare centers, healthcare transportation services, all kinds of fun stuff. So right after he did that, then you saw these other people saying, wow, that's all it takes to get a bazillion views and followers and clout on social media. And so you had people like John Rocker going through Columbus, Ohio, knocking on doors of daycare centers. And you had other kind of copycats doing this for months now. Well, finally, got to give them some credit here because I give them a lot of grief when they get it wrong. We have one network, finally, one network. After you and I have been talking about this for 2.5 months, actually go do the basic journalism that was accomplished by a 23-year-old with no experience, with no training, with no budget, with no network. It was just him and a guy named Dave. They had an iPhone and a Bluetooth microphone, and that's all it took. So it's amazing, but kind of a relief to see CBS News finally jumping in on the fray.
So hospice fraud costs taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars every year.
Yeah, we know.
California is ground zero. So basically, people steal Medicare numbers, they enroll them in hospices, and then bill for tens, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars. A lot of these companies are just fronts. So over 700 of the roughly 1,800 hospices in LA County trigger multiple red flags for possible fraud. So we went door to door, and what we found was empty office spaces, piled up mail, and not a single healthcare worker in sight. There's even a stretch in LA with 500 registered hospice companies within just 3 miles of each other. In fact, there's even a single building with 89 registered hospice companies. We wanted to get some answers.
Okay, so my name is Adam Yamaguchi, and I'm with CBS.
No, look, you're hearing this is what Nick Shirley did. He goes to the door. Hey, I'm just here. I heard there was a daycare center here. Just want to kind of see if that's the case. And so he goes through and he exposes these people. One of the amazing parts about this, there's about 10 amazing parts about this, but one of them, and a lot of people have recognized this online, is that there's still people that are defending this. There are still people in the comment section going, listen, 89 businesses in one location doesn't mean anything. If you're a hospice service provider, you probably don't even have any employees in your building. They're probably all out in the field, in the house, and you just maybe come in every once in a while for a meeting or to fill out some paperwork or to check in. So it doesn't prove anything that there's 89 businesses in one building and there's nobody there. It's like, dude, how bad does it have to be before you get suspicious? How bad does it have to be before you think to yourself, I don't think this is a legit business? I mean, this guy that's going around on CBS News is showing the mail stacked up. There's no one in the parking lot. It's just like the Leering Center situation. It's an obvious fraud. And anybody who's watching this with any iota of critical thinking skills will say there's something going wrong here. But there's a couple of reasons why the narrative hates this story. Number one is they are the party of social networks, of social programs, of socialism. And every one of these stories reminds the American public just how failed and stupid socialism has proven itself to be over 100 plus years of trying to get this right. Remember when the original Russian Revolution happened, they kicked out the Tsar. There was a little provisional government for a couple of years there. And then when communism emerged on the other side, it was the first Marxist government on the planet. And it was the first real socialist government on the planet. And we were told that this is the new system of governance for the future. This is the way to go. This is how you're going to alleviate poverty and bring about total equality and harmony between the classes and the whatever. Well, it failed within 70 years. Communism only lasted until, 1992? And already fell flat on its face. But that didn't stop these people from trying. And they're going to keep trying over and over and over. It doesn't matter how much it fails. There just seems to be some sort of flaw in the human experience that has people searching this out. I guess it sounds good on paper. Hey, how about we all share? And then there will be enough food for everybody. There'll be enough housing for everybody. There'll be enough, vacation time for everybody. Where does that work? Where is that working out? Because the record of history is crystal clear. The only time you're improving the lot of the ordinary person in society is when you're at least somewhere close to a free market capitalist economy. And the closer you get to that, the better you do. The more you stray from that, the worse you do. And there's no exceptions to it. And you may be able to point out Cuba's a failed state. Yeah, Cuba's just one island. They don't have a whole lot of resources to begin with. Plus, they're right next to a belligerent hyperpower. But the Russia thing should have ended everything. They were what may be the most technologically advanced country on the planet for a while there. Remember, they beat us to space. They were the first people to put a satellite up there, a dog up there, a human being in space. They're the first people to put a probe on the moon. Did it last, or did it immediately deteriorate? And you know the answer to that. The other example is when we split Germany in half. East Germany, West Germany. Let's take one country, we'll split it in half, we'll make one half socialist, one half capitalist. Which one failed? Which one fell on its face? Which one had to put up of the Berlin Wall? Was it the capitalist or the socialist? So it's amazing how these people are just now discovering, oh, wow, socialism. It's not working over here. I can't believe it. Well, at least CBS is on it. Because you and I have been all over this. We were over this before the Nick Shirley expose. And even Dr. Oz, who was in the House of Representatives, he ran for Senate, lost to John Fetterman in Pennsylvania. He's now in the Trump administration somewhere in, he's not like Surgeon General or something, but he's one of those medical people in the Trump administration. He put out a video in January talking about the fraud in Cali that CBS News just finally admitted to 6 weeks later.
California is already paying back $1.6 billion that they previously charged to the federal government for healthcare services given to illegal immigrants. But they have a much bigger fraud problem that hurts American citizens. So I've instructed Governor Newsom to produce within the next 3 weeks a comprehensive program integrity action plan to address major fraud in their healthcare system. I'm going to give you 3 examples of embarrassing fraud that Governor Newsom has been seemingly tolerating for years. First, California shares the problems that we are seeing in Minnesota with in-home supportive services. What are these? They include personal care like bathing or grooming, household tasks, cleaning and cooking, shopping, transportation. Now, these are tasks that your family could do for you, but having the government pay has generated some significant cash for unethical people. California's spending for these services increased from $8 to $28 billion over the past decade. Why should the federal taxpayer spend 250% more money on California, which is already an affluent state? And this program is still growing by double digits annually. Second, in 2024 alone, spending for home health care in California increased by more than 21%. The number of home health agencies in California almost doubled between 2019 and 24. LA County alone is accounting for $1.4 billion, representing almost 9% of total fee-for-service home health spending for the entire country.
And you should care about this, not because it's unfair, not because it's unjust, or because someone's stealing and getting away with it. No, this excess spending at the federal level has resulted in the deficits, which results in money printing, just adding to the monetary pool there, which has led to inflation for you and me. You and me have both gotten a 25% pay cut since the year 2000. Meaning if you were making $100,000 in the year 2000, that only buys you $75,000 worth of stuff right now. If you're wondering, if you're feeling like, well, my pay hasn't gone down, but my standard of living is getting a little tighter, that's why. That's why you can't get ahead. That's why you finally got that big job 5 years ago and you thought you'd be able to afford maybe not a new car, but a better car, or maybe you could afford to actually start taking vacations, or maybe you'd actually start saving for retirement because you'd have a little excess. But every year it got a little tougher and a little tougher and a little tighter, and now you're back at square one. If you had $1 million saved for retirement, only by $750,000. And that might not sound good to you, but for people on the lower end, if you had $100,000 saved for retirement, that now only gets you $75,000. So you have been robbed absolutely blind, and it hasn't been hard to do it. The government's just been handing out your money to any old fraudster with only the minimum amount of oversight, and you've been getting the bill, not just through your active taxes, but through the passive taxation of inflation. If you're wondering why you can't get ahead, this is why. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Coming up next, the terrible story of a woman in Texas who was killed in a carjacking, dropping off her friend from her cancer treatment. Wait till you hear more about the suspect. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey there, fellow Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Your home for Markley, Van Camp, and Robbins. Sad story from one of our neighbors here. Donald Trump just came up to the podium. He is speaking in Kentucky. Let's go live. All right, we'll keep monitoring that. If he says anything I think you'd like to hear, you'll probably hear it after the top of the hour news break here. So back to the story at hand. This happened in Texas. This is a sad story about what happened on Friday night. And I mean Friday like 5 days ago. Friday. And this is out of the Houston area.
Friday, I went to MD Anderson for my second chemo treatment, and I shared about that on Friday. My friend Marietta. So we left MD Anderson at 10:50 on Friday night, and we drove to my friend's house who we were staying with. My friend Marietta was driving my car, and she dropped my dad and I and the luggage off at my friend's elevator. And then she went to park the car. And when she parked the car, on her walk back, she was shot and killed. They have caught the guy. He stole my car, totaled the car. There were 2 guns in the car that he put there. They were not my firearms. He then escaped on foot and entered an apartment complex and barricaded himself into a vacant apartment. He broke in, and the SWAT team was able to get him out after a couple of hours and arrested him. And it turns out he had some similar evading arrest and things like that and a juvenile record, and he was out on probation. And that's when all this happened on Friday night.
So there's a lot of problems with this. You go dig a little bit further into the story and you find out the guy that did the carjacking. I mean, dare you call it a carjacking, murder and carjacking. He's 18. He has a juvenile record that's largely sealed, but even since he turned 18, he's already in trouble for what they're calling aggravated battery. Now, I don't know the technical ins and outs of everything legal here, but if you punch someone, it's battery. If you use a weapon, isn't that where it gets aggravated? So it's quite likely this guy has already committed a violent crime with a gun. Why is he out? Why is he out on bond? This seems like something that could be completely preventable. And that's the dastardly part about so many of these crime stories are the preventable ones. You know, if it's done by an illegal immigrant, especially some guy who's been deported 10 times, that breaks your heart because that could have easily been avoided. If it's happened from some guy who's been arrested 100 times, and I know that sounds like an exaggeration, but for some of them it's true. That's awful because it seems like it could have been easily avoided if only we would enforce the laws the way they're written. This is another one where a guy who clearly can't be trusted to be out of jail. He has multiple juvenile offenses. He has multiple offenses even since he's been able to be tried as an adult. What is he doing out on bail at all? I can understand bail if it's your first offense, especially if you've never been convicted of anything before. I can understand bail if they're really young and it wasn't that bad of a crime. You know, bail for shoplifters or something nonviolent. But here you have a repeat violent offender and some softy judge is letting them walk. You know, mercy to the criminal is punishment to the victim. This is what we call suicidal empathy, where you care so much about the poor, poor kid in jail that you cause him to be released in order to alleviate his suffering, but you cause more suffering to the outside world by releasing him. It's a really dumb thing. It's a really illogical thing. For most people, we see that and we're like, well, that's stupid. We shouldn't do that. But there are people in positions of power that do it, and there are a whole lot of our neighbors that can't rush to the polls to vote for these people fast enough. And part of you thinks, well, if this is the kind of judges you want, then this is the world that you should have to wallow in. Let them learn their lesson the hard way. That's not good. Because some innocent lady has nothing to do with that world, probably wouldn't vote that way in a million years. Coming home from cancer treatment by her friend who's a good Samaritan is now victimized for the rest of her life. What do you do about this? Stop voting for Democrats? I mean, it seems really obvious here, but let's try just something that's not political or shouldn't be political here. Enforce the law the way it's written. whether it's your immigration law, laws on deportation or coming here legally, whether it's the H-1B visa scams, whether it's the home hospice scams, whether it's the young violent repeat offenders. Just enforce the damn law. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Coming up next, an immigrant pushed two men on the train tracks in New York City in the subway. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey there, fellow Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. I am your host, James Parker. I know, good to see you too. Well, we're talking about some tough stories here in Texas. And this is a story that happened in Houston, but you hear similar stories like this happening in Dallas on disturbingly regular basis. There's a lady who is a good Samaritan helping her friend go to her cancer treatments at MD Anderson in Houston. They were going to stay at a friend's house because they had commuted there like a lot of us do. I mean, my grandmother, when she had cancer and was dying of cancer, we went down to MD Anderson. We had to stay in Houston for a while. So, yeah, I've been there. Except for the fact she dropped off her friend, got carjacked and killed. That makes it a little tougher. And what do we do about this? How do we solve this problem?
Friday, I went to MD Anderson for my second chemo treatment, and I shared about that on Friday. My friend Marietta. So we left MD Anderson at 10:50 on Friday night, and we drove to my friend's house who we were staying with. My friend Marietta was driving my car, and she dropped my dad and I and the luggage off at my friend's elevator. And then she went to park the car. And when she parked the car, on her walk back, she was shot and killed. They have caught the guy. He stole my car, totaled the car. There were 2 guns in the car that he put there. They were not my firearms. He then escaped on foot and entered an apartment complex and barricaded himself into a vacant apartment. He broke in, and the SWAT team was able to get him out after a couple of hours and arrested him. And it turns out he had some similar evading arrests and things like that and a juvenile record, and he was out on probation. And that's when all this happened on Friday night.
Seems pretty preventable. The guy already had records, and it wasn't for jaywalking. It wasn't for sneaking tokens at Chuck E. Cheese. He already had violent offenses with weapons, aggravated battery. We don't know what the juvenile stuff is, but we do know that he's 18. This is not the first time he's been in trouble since he's been an adult, and he was already out on bail. And it seems kind of obvious. So keep these people who have demonstrated themselves to be violent, just keep them in jail. Stop letting them out. But how do we stop that? You and I don't control who the people of Harris County vote in as judges. Hell, we don't control the people who vote in the judges in Dallas County. So what do? Do you just stay out of major metropolitan areas? I mean, I guess you can do that as much as you want or as much as you can. But what happens when you have to go to the greatest cancer treatment facility the world has to offer? You have to go to a big city. So really, you can't avoid this completely. And I think that's what we find so frustrating. These are crimes that are easily prevented. These crimes that are by illegal immigrants, these crimes that are by legal immigrants, these crimes that are by repeat offenders. This seems like it could easily be minimized. And we're never going to get rid of all crime. But if we just started putting violent people away the second they demonstrated they're violent, what would 80% of crime go away? It really does seem that simple. This is Mike in Frisco. You're on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey, Mike.
Good afternoon. I have a suggestion. I would like to see there some sort of legislation be put forth to make these judges, magistrates responsible for the actions of these repeat criminals, make them legally responsible, criminally responsible for the actions of these people that they cut back loose on the streets.
Well, then they wouldn't cut anybody loose.
Well, the repetitive criminal guys, like this character, the guy from Carolina that slashed the young lady on the subway.
Oh my God!
The list goes on and on.
Yeah,
it goes on and on. So make these judges responsible for the criminal actions of those guys that they let out back onto the streets.
I don't know how we do that without just getting rid of bond, period, because then no judge would ever let anyone out on bond, because there's no negative consequences to keeping them locked up, but there is negative consequences to letting them out. And so, extremism in the other direction is going to have a lot of negative consequences too.
Doesn't there seem like there could be some sort of common sense threshold that you pass that? I mean,
I get exactly what you're saying, but we've already tried that. We tried that with the 3 strikes law. And California, I think, was one of the first states to do a 3 strikes law, but they found ways around it. And there's still people in California who have 15 felonies and they're still out on the street. So we've kind of tried that. And I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying I don't know how we would word it to make it be effective, because we've tried similar things in other states. And really, when you're at this point, you're not even dealing with the root cause of the disease. You're dealing with the symptoms of the disease. You know, you're not taking the AZT for your AIDS. You're giving them a Kleenex so they can wipe their nose. And so if you really want to have the question on how do we stop this problem in the first place, or how do we minimize it, you know, that answer is dads. Quite obviously, dads being in the house is the biggest number one determinant, whether or not you're going to go to prison, whether or not you're going to develop an addiction to drugs, whether or not you're going to end up in sex work for women or being a rapist for men. For almost every societal ill down the line, it seems like the correction for that, or at least the minimization of it, would be dads. We don't control that either, Mike. We can't make people in the inner city fall in love and get married and have their kids in wedlock. So I think that's why I'm so interested in these topics, is I don't have the answer to this.
Make a good point. Dads are missing a lot of places. That's a big problem.
Yeah. Well, dads are missing, you know, in white communities and rural communities and Hispanic communities greater than they were in previous generations. It just expresses it a lot more in the black urban communities, which I think is a great explanation, because then it means, well, this isn't racist. This isn't racial. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with people based on the color of their skin that makes them more criminal than others, because the studies show that if a black American kid is born in wedlock with his biological parents both in the house throughout his childhood, he's less trouble to society than the white kid who is born and raised by a single mom. So it's I mean, it doesn't make me feel a whole lot better about the situation we're in now, but I guess there's some hope for the future if enough people start to catch on. And does that really sound like I'm hateful? Is that what a hate-filled racist bigot would say? Well, what do you think we should do with the black community? We should encourage them to fall in love. We should encourage them to find a soulmate, get married, live happily ever after. Now, we get lectured at the Super Bowl halftime, the only thing that can bigger than hate is love. Well, then why aren't you encouraging love? You're not encouraging love. You're encouraging, I saw the Super Bowl halftime. It was promiscuous, gratuitous, recreational sex. And that's the problem that has birthed, no pun intended, or I guess pun intended, birthed a big part of this problem. You know, if you would listen to Bad Bunny, what's he talking about? Just doing it all the time with anyone who's hot, just being I don't know, like a donator of certain bodily fluids. Kids are in the car. It's spring break, so I don't want to say it, but you know, are you really the party of love? Are you really encouraging people to be in love, Bad Bunny? Or are you encouraging recreational sex, using your body for just the base chemical reaction that happens in your head when you finish? Is that really love? 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Coming up next, Lieutenant General Richard Newton. He's a national security contributor for News Nation. And I believe, is he going to be calling in from Tel Aviv? Is that where he's coming from? I think he's there now. So we'll get a live update from the Middle East coming up on The James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey there, fellow Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. I am your host, James Parker. Well, we're having some connection issues with our News Nation reporter in Tel Aviv. If we get that cleared up before the end of the segment, I'll definitely go straight to him, because Donald Trump sort of hinted today that they're kind of running out of things to blow up over there. And I don't mean things to blow up. I mean militarily important targets. If their air defenses are wiped out, what do you bomb next? If you keep bombing all the Ayatollahs, who do you bomb next? And the real big question mark I have that I'm not afraid to put this out in the universe, but it does feel kind of icky, is that how long before this Ayatollah gets bombed? He's the son of the last Ayatollah. So, is he long for this world? It's like being the oldest person in the world. I don't think you ever want to be the oldest person in the world. That dude usually dies pretty soon, right? There's pretty high turnover at that position. So we'll see about that. There was some interesting things that happened in an exchange that he had with some reporters right in front of that loud, stupid helicopter. But the point being made here is this first question that was asked: what more do you need to do militarily before you consider the job done?
What more do you need to do militarily for this operation to end? More of the same, and we'll see how that all comes out. Right now, they've lost their Navy, they've lost their Air Force, they have no anti-aircraft apparatus at all, they have no radar, their leaders are gone, and we could do a lot worse to one another. We're leaving certain things that if we take them out, or we could take them out by this afternoon, in fact, within an hour, they literally would never be able to build that country back.
So, yeah, we have the ability to just decimate a country from the other side of the planet. What is this going to mean if Donald Trump can actually win this war with Iran, especially if he can do it quick? Because what does that mean if you're Putin? Imagine being Putin right now. You're trying to take over this country that's next to you, Ukraine, that when you were born, y'all were in the same country. It's not even like really that foreign of a people. It's not even that foreign of a country. It's next door. You can just walk over there. They can't even take Ukraine. They can take a couple of provinces in the Eastern District that are 90-something% Russian anyway. But look at how little progress, look at how little success they've had in Ukraine. Now, granted, that's in large part because of us, but the point still stands. Russia's over here helping Iran with their logistics. In fact, CNN just did a story about how Iran is learning how to do these drone strikes. And Russia has had a good chance to practice for the last few years in its drone strikes. What is that, 4 years going on now? And so they're sort of sharing notes, and they're still getting their butt kicked all over the place. Crazy part is, these are real interesting questions to ask, because the results of wars, period, is in the resulting peace. People know who the big dog is, who the second dog is, who the third dog is, and we have a world pecking order. And for the most part, most of these wars that we've seen throughout history is someone just trying to rearrange the pecking order. And if we can win this big, this bad, this fast against Iran, who's all the way on the other side of the planet from us, that means Putin is nowhere close to being the top dog. China, nowhere close to being the top dog. The other part is this insistence, this focus on the strike in Iran, on the girls' school.
As Commander-in-Chief, do you...
For what?
For the strike on the school in Iran. A new report says the military investigation has found it was the United States that struck the school.
There's no utility in that question. That is a terrible question for a journalist to ask. Not that I'm indifferent to the dying, to 100 schoolgirls dying or innocents dying in any war. But when you talk about the justifications for the war, why was the war started? What are the objectives? Does any of it have to do with the Iranian girls' school? Well, yeah, this is a justified act of war as long as we don't hit a girls' school. Is that what the rules are? Or this is totally justified until we hit an Iranian girls' school, then we need to pull out. None of it makes sense. None of it has any journalistic integrity or utility whatsoever. That is a question just to make Orange Man look bad. That's disgusting. Exploiting the death of 100 Iranian schoolgirls, if it even happened, in order just to make Orange Man look bad. Michael in Plano, you're on WBAP.
Hi, good afternoon. I can understand our beloved commanders-in-chief, who I have high respect for, his comment about no military targets remaining. But the targets that are the Iranian government's levers of power still exist. And until they destroy all them, like every IRGC unit or militia unit or anything that the government's using to keep people cowed or killed in the streets, they're not going to overthrow the regime, because one of the basic rules of war is it takes infantry to close with and destroy the enemy and hold terrain. And we're not doing that. So somebody has to do that on our behalf in Iran.
I mean, it sounds like you're right, but I have too many examples of that not being the case. And the most recent one was Syria. We didn't have to bomb and kill everyone in Bashar al-Assad's regime. We didn't even have to kill him. We just had to decimate him bad enough militarily that he knew he couldn't win. And since his opponents had the backing of the outside world, he's now living in exile. Didn't he go to Moscow, or he went somewhere? He's just chilling out in exile. There's a lot of those. We didn't have to do all that to get Noriega out of Panama. We didn't have to do all that to get Maduro out of Venezuela. We didn't have to completely decimate other countries for regime change. So, I mean, that might be the case for Iran, but I don't know that.
Well, they talk about this group that it's called the Byrat, B-Y-R-A-T, something like that. It's like the shadow government network of operatives all loyal to that Ayatollah committee, who are basically a second government, and they're the ones really running things. And I doubt that we have significantly reduced their numbers or their influence. And given that they don't have a Second Amendment over there, and none of the population's armed, it's going to be hard for them to overthrow people.
Yeah, I hear that. Yeah, good points there at the end there. Michael in Plano, appreciate it. Thank you for calling into the James Show. Thanks for listening. All right, so where does that put us? Coming up next on the James Show. This is just kind of gross, but another immigrant attack. 2 men were pushed on the subway tracks in New York City. One of them's an 83-year-old who's still in critical condition. You'll hear that terrible story coming up next on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey, Texas homeowners. James Parker here for Rhino Shield. If you remember anything about Rhino Shield, just remember paint is now for the inside of your house. For the outside, you're going to want to use Rhino Shield. And listen, if you want to go full bore with it, once you understand this technology and how awesome it is and how durable it is and how good it lasts, you'll want to use it on everything outside. Of course, it'll make your house look good. It'll stick to the wood, the stucco, the brick, the metal, aluminum, whatever you got going on. But if you got a little cabana out back, if you got a shed, like a she shed or a hobby shed, you might want to get that covered with Rhino Shield. If you've got a garage where, a workshop where, I don't know, maybe you have a drill press or a hydraulic lift or whatever you're doing out for your hobby, that could use Rhino Shield. And the guys at Rhino Shield are telling me a lot of people have started doing it on their fences. Whether it's your regular old privacy fence, because I've just got the old wooden privacy fence. And I got that a few years ago, and it's already like grayed and crusty and rotting, and the boards are kind of flaking off. It would have lasted a lot longer if I had put Rhino Shield on it. And if you're going to do a brick fence, well, then you definitely want to use Rhino Shield because it'll look great, and you'll come back in 10, 20 years, and it's not going to be peeling and flaking and cracking. And so if you're worried about the expense, mention the James Show, get 15% off, and Rhino Shield can do something else paint can't. They can put it on a low monthly payment for you because the bank won't give you a loan on paint. They will for Rhino Shield. Why? Because it's that good. Go to rhinoshielddfw.com. Hey there, fellow Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Let me play you a terrible story coming out of New York City. This is ABC 7. New York City! Well, that's a Pace Pecani commercial, but this is ABC 7.
Recording from the subway tracks, a victim says he was pushed by this man wearing a red hoodie before also shoving this 83-year-old man off the platform.
Cuando yo caí a las vías del tren.
Speaking exclusively with me in Spanish, 30-year-old John Rodriguez of Maspeth, Queens, says he was on his way to work, standing on the southbound FQ platform at the Lexington Avenue 63rd Street subway station, when he says this man, captured on his cell phone video, unprovokingly shoved him.
Y lo que quise hacer fue...
I panicked. I started asking for help, not only for me, but for the other man that was pushed. Watch again. He starts recording as a Good Samaritan tries to help him. That's when he says the 83-year-old got pushed too. Police say that man, who lives on Roosevelt Island, is listed in critical condition.
So yeah, this happened again. Crazy guy pushing people on the train tracks. Any mention of race in that? Was there any mention of that? No? That's weird because in other stories, race is the most important element possible. In fact, in other stories, it's so strange how in some of them, the race gets put in the headline. You can't get away from it. In some stories, they even see race where racism isn't there. Like George Floyd's the best example. Like, there's a racist killing. Well, how do you know it was racist? Because it was a white guy harming a black guy? Do you know it was in his head? Did he say anything racist? Did he even mention the guy's ethnicity at all? Was he saying the N-word or any other ethnic slur? Was there any slur involved whatsoever? Did he even say anything negative about the guy? What proof do you have that it was based on racism and not just a bad call? I think I'll put my knee on his back because this guy's overdosing. You don't know. So there we are. You're not going to get the full answers for that from the media. You go look it up yourself and you'll get the answer that you expected. All right, now joining us from, I believe, Tel Aviv. This is amazing. Lieutenant General Richard Newton. I've seen him on News Nation here. What is your location, or are you allowed to tell us, Richard? So tell me what's going on over there. We hear a lot about what's blowing up in Iran. We've seen some of the American bases get hit across the Gulf states there. But what's the fallout been like in Israel? So when you talk about Iran being more active than they were, are you saying their retaliatory strikes have actually stepped up? So we're talking with Lieutenant General Richard Newton, and when the drones come, what are we using to shoot them down, or what's Israel using to shoot them down? So CNN's been reporting about every 5 minutes today that there is a significant threat from an Iranian drone ship on the West Coast. Does California have anything to worry about? Well, thanks for the eyewitness accounts there, Lieutenant General Richard Newton. Where do we see your reports on News Nation? Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the assist. This is Lieutenant General Richard Newton from News Nation. Coming up next, we're going to play an extremely inaccurate report from CNN yesterday. Look, accidents happen, but I just want to set the table because we're all looking for a correction on tonight's show from Abby Phillips. You'll hear it next on The James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. We're all looking for a correction tonight from CNN. You don't have to watch it. I'll let you know on tomorrow's James Show. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Your home for Mark Lee Van Camp and Robbins. By now, you know the details of the story over the weekend in New York City at the mayor's house.
New York City!
Some anti-Muslim... the protesters, they weren't protesting anything. It was more of a rally. They roasted a pig, and they brought it on a gurney out in front of the mayor's mansion, which isn't really like a threat or anything because the mayor wasn't even there. He was just trying to get some attention for himself. There were more counter protesters saying, "This New York is welcome to anybody." And while some beta male was lisping through a bullhorn, an angry young Muslim terrorist used him as a springboard to chuck a bomb into the crowd. Luckily, it didn't go off. But anyone seeing the guy turn around and yell Allahu Akbar 3 times as he's running down the street, and then he grabs another one and tries to chuck it at cops. We all know who the bad guy was in this situation. We all know who the instigator was. We all know who was, I say violent. No violence actually happened. There was an attempt of violence. There was an attempt at mass murder. We all know who the bad guy is. Yet somehow this is a slip up here. Abby Phillips on CNN last night said this.
2 Republicans say Muslims don't belong here after an attempted terror attack against New York's Mayor Zohran Mamdani, and the House Speaker Mike Johnson says nothing really to condemn those comments. Another special guest is going to be with us at the table when we come.
Oh, yeah, there was a terror attack against Mamdani. No, there wasn't. There was a terror attack by the Mamdani supporters. There was a terror attack by Team Mamdani. Remember, he's a Muslim who is full-throated in support of these people. He's pro-Palestinian over the Israelis and the whole Gaza-Israel conflict. He doesn't like the bombing of Iran. In fact, he has made that like a central focus of who he is. So Abby did not correct herself before the end of the show last night. No big deal. Someone pointed it out to her probably a million times between last night and this morning. So this morning at 7:30 our time, she posted this on Twitter. I want to correct something I said last night. The bombs thrown in New York City over the weekend by ISIS-inspired attackers was thrown into a crowd of anti-Muslim protesters and not specifically targeted at Mayor Mamdani. That wording was inaccurate, and I didn't catch it ahead of time. I apologize for the error. So what a trash retraction that was. She never said she was sorry. She said they weren't specifically targeted at Mayor Mamdani. Well, it wasn't secondarily or vaguely targeted or generally targeted at Mayor Mamdani. There wasn't any adverb that should go there. It was not targeting Mayor Mamdani. Thank you very much. But we'll see if she corrects the record on the air. We'll see. There's a whole lot of people who are watching this. Jimmy Fallon probably had the best. He's on our sister station, KLIF, this evening. He probably had the best response to that. He said, if September 11th happened today, the New York Times would describe the Muslim hijackers as amateur pilots, and Mamdani would invite their relatives to dinner. This is the dumbest time there has ever been to be alive. We'll see. Come back tomorrow on the James Show. We'll find out if she did the retraction. Stick around. Mark Levin's next on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP.